Welcome to the King Street Cinema podcast. My name's Andy and I'm joined as ever by King Street's very own James. Hello James, you're right.
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm quite looking forward to this one.
Yeah?
The Crow. It's kind of our generation.
It certainly is our generation.
And we're recording this on a kind of dark, miserable morning. So it's quite appropriate.
I guess, well, yes. Let's say yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not raining yet,
Yeah.
which it does throughout the whole entire film.
Yeah. And apparently it doesn't rain all the time in Detroit. Told.
Probably not, but most of the time.
Most of the time, so it's quite accurate.
Yeah.
But it did rain all through 94.
Did.
Yes. So The Crow, 1994, R-rated superhero comic book movie. Where should we start? Firstly, I'm going to start by asking you your memories of this film coming out and first time seeing it.
Okay. So they're different things because I didn't see it when it first came out. When it came out in 94, I would have been 12.
Yeah.
Remember it very well being around. I remember a lot of people seeing it when it came out, or at least when the video came out.
Yeah.
And people loving it, absolutely going crazy for it. Lots of people telling me I should see it because it's certainly something that I would like because it's action and whatever else, and I was into that sort of thing. But there was always something about it at first that I was a bit kind of skeptical about. And I could not quite tell you why. Maybe I just didn't like the image. Because the image to me didn't really appeal to me that much. I didn't really think, oh, guy with long black hair with makeup on, that looks cool. I didn't think that.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, well, maybe it's just like every other action movie I've seen. So I didn't bother. And it was a few years later down the line, people have kind of not going crazy about it so much. I figured I'll put it on and watch it. And I did enjoy it. Yeah. I did like it. And I did think to myself, oh, you should have just watched it first time around when it first came along, because I'm sure you would have felt exactly the same as you do now about it. So, yeah, it's very much a teenager film, I think. And I think if you saw it when it came out and you were a teenager, you will certainly have fond memories of it, which I'm sure will stick with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Especially if you're a certain type of teenager.
Yes, but I don't see. I agree with you to an extent, but I think most teenagers, even the ones that don't think they have angst, do.
Yeah.
And this is what this film is. I mean, sure, maybe you're not into the style or anything, the aesthetic of it, but the feeling of the movie, which is outcast.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean,
I can remember in high school and being sort of sixth form, early college time, when this was about and was talked about for a few years. It was kind of a 50-50 film. Some people loved it, and some people hated it, and it's sort of different types of. If it was an American high school, it would be the obvious group. But I think now you've said that, the ones who didn't like it probably hadn't seen it. They were just like, well, that's that goth thing. Sure, I'm not into that, so I won't watch it.
The thing for me, right? So going back to what I just said, I never thought of it as being a goth thing. Like when I said to myself, I don't really want to watch that. That wasn't because I didn't like goth stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I don't know why. Just the look of him didn't appeal to me. And everyone talking about his death and about him being, Brandon Lee, who I didn't know was Bruce Lee's son. I knew who Bruce Lee was.
Yeah.
That whole thing to me just didn't really appeal.
Yeah.
In a way of like making me go, oh, let's definitely go see this movie. Because there were a lot of films around which kind of looked like this movie at the time that were directed kind of video or DVD or whatever it would have been video at the time, and which this film was originally meant to be, I think.
This is the thing, because Brandon Lee, most people, if we're honest, hadn't really heard of him before this film.
No, they hadn't.
He'd done some direct-to-video action films, quite a few, in fact.
Yes.
And this is what I read. This was his first bigger one intended for cinema release.
Oh, really?
But I also read it was actually intended to be a trilogy as well.
Right.
And that's why some of it seems a bit. There's two reasons why some of the editing seems a bit odd. One, because he died with still shooting time left.
Yes.
And I recently read that it was meant to be part of a trilogy. So some of the backstory, you were actually meant to see in a later film.
Right. Now that's interesting.
Yeah, see, but the thing for me, I don't really see how, if you've seen the film, how it could be, unless there was other, because he kind of accomplishes his mission in this movie, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So maybe other things would have happened, and
there'll be, I'm guessing, other reasons. I mean, okay, so just to say, if no one knows, that this is based on an already existing property, which is a comic book series. So if you knew the comics, which I didn't and still don't, I've never read any of them, maybe information is in there that would be adapted to, continuing films. I have no idea. I will say about the general plot of the film and the way that the film is told, other than it being a very, very, very 90s movie, which could perhaps potentially be seen as dated to some people nowadays, the plot is extraordinarily thin.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in films with plot-heavy movies, which a lot of action films are these days, loads of big backstories with big origins, this has none of that ultimately. It is pretty much just bare bones. This thing happened and he's going to go and do a thing because of it.
Yeah.
And that's
meeting a few people along the way.
And those people you meet, you know very, very little about.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of people really like it. Mm-hmm. The simplicity of it, and it's... You said that the teenage angst. It is like he has this one thing that he's obviously in the film. It's very serious.
Absolutely.
His wife has been him and his wife have been murdered.
They have.
A year later, he comes back from the dead to revenge the gang.
Yeah.
Who murdered him and his wife. It's that simple. And when you're a teenager, whatever you're angry about is all you can focus on.
Absolutely.
So I think that works.
Mm-hmm.
If there was too much going on, I think the film would become boring.
Yeah, I agree. For what it is, for the story that it is, it's perfect comic book way of telling the story.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you and doesn't need to give you too much in-depth analysis or characterization. You just are given a very clear cut, this happened to this person and now that something's going to happen because of it. Cause and effect kind of thing.
The only real side plot I can think of is I've seen this film quite a few times over the years. I'm looking on Letterboxd. I watched it about 2 years ago was the last time I watched it.
Right.
And I'm saving it because I want to see it on the 1st of June.
That is right,
at King Street Cinema. The only real sort of subplot I can think of is he befriends a little girl who has issues with her mum.
Sure.
And but the mum's part all knows the gang.
Yeah, they're all connected.
So it's all connected, but there's a few little things.
The world that it exists in is tiny, right? So all the characters that exist all are connected with each other. There are no people that are off in some other town or something that only know one or two other characters and we meet them and get to know them. But there's none of that. It's all very much contained in one tiny little space in this almost dystopian, futuristic kind of version of.
It is set slightly in the future, I believe.
Yeah, but you don't know that. I don't think it's told.
I think the writers said, James O'Barr done the comics. I think
I mean, it looks like something that, like, if you've ever seen like Split Second or something, where it's like it's the future, but it's not really the future. Like it all.
Well, Split Second was made in the 90s and set in about 2005.
Something like that. So maybe it's something like 10 years or something like that. So really, there's not too much difference
so distant
in future. Yeah. That kind of thing, but the world has gone to hell, or at least the world that exists in the film of The Crow, which you say is Detroit. See, I didn't know if it was set, where it was set.
Yeah.
But if you say Detroit, fine. So the city of Detroit has really gone. Now a lot of people say Detroit has gone to hell for many years, but not to this extent. The extent of this movie is a very futuristic, dystopian kind of look at.
And it all takes part on something called Devil Night, which is Halloween.
Devil's Night, which. I don't know if there's a thing that exists, which is the night before Halloween. Now, the night before Halloween does have another name that I know well called Mischief Night.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's connected with Devil's Night, if it's another name for it or what. But yeah, so they have this night called Devil's Night, which is where they burn the bad guys, the villains, like to burn the city.
Yeah.
And that's the night where the night that the couple die at the beginning of the film.
Yeah. So that's a simplistic bit. There's actually the changes from the comic. I don't think the little girl's in the comic. I'm not sure. Right. I have read it, but there's excuse me, the policeman character played by Ernie, the legendary Ernie Huston.
Indeed.
In the comic book, there's 2 characters, so they sort of condensed that.
Right. Yeah.
So there's changes, and it was an hour 40, something like that.
It's pretty much an hour 40, which, you know, is a great length. It doesn't overrun, doesn't overstay its welcome. I will say, as I do to pretty much all films, 10 minutes could be trimmed just because it's got a bit in the middle, which is a bit baggy, where you have a lot of shots of just lingering things where it's like, yeah, you could just trim this down.
But that's I mean, is often compared. This is one of those movies that people say, oh, it's like a long music video.
Yeah.
So the shots like that.
That's the sort of thing I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
But that's the appeal to a lot of people.
Certainly of the time as well, where maybe today, I don't know, oh, it's just me. It's a nitpicky kind of thing. I mean, it's tiny, but I do say it to many about many films, even films that I love. So,
Yeah, so we've mentioned Brandon Lee, who, what do you think of his performance?
Right, okay, now in all honesty, because we could go and talk about, you could have big podcasts about the whole Brandon Lee myth, right? About
we want to touch on that, but it's been done.
But sure, but if you're just talking about how I feel about his performance, it's fine for the character that it was. I do not believe, though, in my own mind, that he would have gone on to be this kind of star that loads of people say was cut short. I do not see that in this performance. I see a fine performance. It's great for what it is, but I do not see a Heath Ledger, right?
No.
You know, it's not the Joker. Right?
No, I think he'd have gone on to be bigger than he obviously was before. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say because the success of this film, a lot of it, I hate to say it, because it made a lot of money.
Yes,
may have been because of the incidents around it. I still think it'd always have been a cult movie. So maybe this would be the one that he'd be remembered for anyway. They've probably done sequels, and maybe he'd have done a few other.
Well, there were sequels made of it.
Oh yeah, but sequels with him in them.
Yeah, sure.
And a few other films like this. But who knows? Because he doesn't actually do much of his martial arts in this.
No.
But I think it's because that trend in movies was falling in 95. Mm-hmm. You know, you had the only real ones still getting cinema releases around then were the big names like Arnie. You know, there was martial arts.
Sure, sure.
Around the time of Under Siege.
And Van Damme was still having movies. I think might have been getting cinema releases.
Just about that.
Yeah.
So I think that was possibly deliberate by him to do something different. It was still an action movie.
Mm-hmm. Certainly an action movie.
And then because of the era, and a few years later, when comic book movies really took off, I see the two eras of that. After '89, when Batman was huge, you got a few. It influenced a lot of films. I include this in that.
Absolutely.
Dark movie.
Completely.
That's make it more adult. Mm-hmm. Now, a few years later, when the X-Men came out and Marvel really took off, maybe there'd have been a role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for him. Maybe he could have been a villain or...
Sure.
You know. So I think he'd have still been working and a name, but I don't think he'd have been a big...
I hate to say it, but Jason Statham kind of level. Yeah. I think, big, but he's not going to be like award winner. I mean, he was never going to be, in my opinion, like people talk about him as being like this kind of, he was going to go off to be like a truly megastar kind of actor, and I don't see it.
No,
but
also, I'm totally with you on that. But we haven't actually seen him do anything else other than this. So but people are seeing stuff that we don't.
I think you might maybe, but I think that the feelings that come from people about this are just solely based on this film, and it is mostly because, if not entirely, because, in my opinion, because he died so tragically on the set of the movie.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, right. So some reviews that I read that came out at the time very much touch on something that I didn't feel when I watched the film, but I completely see a lot of people did feel, which was a sort of sense of watching the film with a melancholic vision. Right, you're watching it knowing that the guy died whilst making the movie, and therefore that's appealing in a certain kind of in a strange kind of way to you, and also. Not just the melancholia, but also the sort of now that there's a myth built around it, even before the film's out. So you've got to go see this movie.
Well, there was there was a time where people didn't think the film would even get released.
Indeed, yes, I remember that very clearly. People talking about that, and there was a debate when it did come out whether it should be out or not because of him dying whilst the film while filming.
Yeah, it's and the whole it links in a way with the plot of the film. It's all about death, and then that happens.
Yes,
And,
absolutely. Again, another thing that was touched on by many critics about people's feelings towards the movie, recognizing that he was.
I'm sure I've read that a lot of the cast never could bring themselves to even watch the finished film.
Right.
I think possibly Ernie Hudson was one who.
Okay.
Was this? I do want to talk about the cast because there's no real big names in it.
No, not massive names. We have Tony Todd, which is great. Always great to see.
Michael Wing.
We have Wincott, is it?
Yeah,
who from one of your favourite films,
Prince of Thieves. Yeah. But yeah, there's
his fantastic deep voice.
Yeah, there's a lot of all the character actors and B movie actors really.
The guy from The Warriors, whose name I always forget.
Oh yeah, with I've got the cast name. I can't forget. He's in a lot of things. He's always like a gang member. And Michael Barrowman from Hills Have Eyes filmed the scene as one of the villains as well.
Did he?
Yeah, and I think I've seen it. I think it's on YouTube.
All right, but removed. Yeah.
Okay. But I think all the cast is. I did listen a while ago to a podcast about this, and it's one of these that takes off from the past and just pick at it. And they did say that they weren't a fan of the acting in the movie, but I think it is comic booky and B movie at the same time.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't see the acting as bad, but I see it as part of this genre of films.
Sure, and it's certainly of the time as well. Like I say about the 90s, it's very much in step and key with a lot of movies that were being made around that time and the way that they are being made. Yeah. So there's clearly something about, let's take this existing property, some kind of dark comic or something. How do we interpret that onto the big screen? And the way The Crow looks is to me anyway, in my eyes, exactly the way that a lot of other films of this type were being made. I would say this is one of the better ones of it, because saying that, your brain may go back to a lot of awful movies that were really, really bad. The Crow isn't one of those, which is interesting because there's no real reason I can pinpoint to why this is different in that respect. Yeah. Because it really shouldn't work so well.
I see it as this was the one that got a lot of other films made.
Yes.
Yeah, I generally think if it wasn't for The Crow, we wouldn't have got Spawn.
Sure. Absolutely.
And that is one of my least favourite.
But I don't even think necessarily just excuse me, sorry. Another film that came out in the same year, I believe, which I think which we have done a podcast on, and I touched on the darkness that exists in that film, at least partially in that movie, which also exists in The Crow, which is Last Action Hero, where the kid exists in this world that's very dark, it's always raining, everyone's a scumbag, no one cares about kids, authority are just reckless. That's The Crow. That's exactly what The Crow is. And that's what happens in Seven, which comes out a year later. And that's a massive success.
Last Action was the same year, wasn't it?
Yeah, 93.
No, year before.
It's 93.
Really,
it
came out at the same time as Jurassic Park.
That's right. Sorry, yeah. So 93. So even before. See, that to me is the beginning of that, where you could say Batman is almost like the origins of it, where we're now saying, okay, we're going to have dark, but Batman is still very cartoony.
This is the thing, there was the darker ones, but there wasn't the R-rated.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was for me. This for me was the first one like that.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't really another 5 or so years before, 3 or 4 years before Blade.
Yeah, sure.
Which was
Blade.
Bigger budget and probably done better.
Yeah, yes, I think so.
But the imagery of Blade is, even though it's vampires, and almost more comic booky, less horror, more comic booky, I suppose. But I'd say that was very influenced visually by The Crow.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, you have stylized elements which are very much like comic, music video kind of thing. Yeah, very much sort of So we're talking music is very important as well in The Crow. Yeah. You have goth icons like The Cure, and industrial rock groups like Nine Inch Nails and stuff. Nine Inch Nails,
I believe, cover a Joy Division song.
So you've got that feel, right? Yeah. That whole feel is there, and and it works really well.
Because one of the things that made me want to watch this film as a kid was There's a few films at the time, but covered in like Krang magazine and Metal Hammer. Sort of the I was never like goth, but I was into the heavy metal scene.
Sure, yeah.
And you pick up a magazine to read an album review, and there's a review of not just the Crow album, but the film. I mean, there was a lot of that in the 90s. Not a lot, but like the Beavis and Butthead movie would have been in there, Airheads, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But this one, I think I was at that age where I wasn't old enough to see it. There's a comic book film I'm not old enough to see.
Yeah.
And then just going back to what I was saying about Blade, I think Sony, who were doing the Marvel films at then, were probably afraid to do an R-rated. Sorry, I'm not American, but I will say R-rated because that's how they're made to be in America.
Yeah.
An R-rated comic book film hadn't been done. They'd seen with this smaller movie, because that's what it was, that it can work, it can make money.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Sure. Now, you do say that it was a small film, but the budget's still fairly big, I think, or at least it became fairly big. I think it started off smaller.
Well, they must have had to. It was 23 million.
Yeah, in the end. Yeah.
And then it made 94 million.
Yeah. So a big success.
Yeah. And the director, Alex
Proyas, I think.
He's gone on to do a few things after, but his next film was a film I think you may be a fan of.
I'm a huge fan
of Dark City. And then
yeah.
I think that film didn't do so well. Probably had a lot bigger budget.
Yes.
But that's a good example for me of often a director on a smallish budget will do a good film. They give them a massive budget and they blow it. Well, I don't think he did. I think he made a great film.
I think Dark City is definitely his. In my opinion, I've seen a fair few of his films, considering he has a very small filmography.
He still directs, doesn't he?
I think so. Yeah, but like the Dark City to me is just definitely his best work by far, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and it's one of his own,
Not,
workings. Like it, the Crow is him directing, but he's not the writer, and obviously he wasn't the creator of the comic. But Dark City is his. Like it's his story, it's his creation.
Yeah.
So to me, that does show. You can see that more, I think, in the film. Like I think there's a lot more consideration for just all-round storytelling is a lot better in Dark City than I think in The Crow. But they are very different movies. So The Crow probably is done in completely the right way. You don't want it to be like I think you touched on earlier. You said earlier that you don't want it to be bogged down with lots of characterization or heavy plot or anything. But I don't think Dark City has much of that either. I just think it's I
haven't seen that since I borrowed the video off someone not long after it came out.
The plot is quite complicated in certain ways, I suppose, which I guess they had to change the beginning because people couldn't understand the plot without there being a explanation at the beginning.
Yeah. but just look at it, he hasn't done that many movies at all. You're right.
Yeah.
Garage Days, have you heard of this one?
Yeah, I've heard it. I haven't seen that.
No, so I've not even heard that. So I just looked. I, Robot, which was a big movie. I haven't seen that.
I've seen it. It's fine. It's good.
It's based on an Outer Limits episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'd probably like that.
You will. I think you'd like that. Yeah.
I've got DVD, not watched it. Done Knowing, the Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah, Cage is good.
But Cage does Cage. But
it's all right. It's one of those with I think great ideas, but doesn't quite follow it through. And then he done a film I saw and wasn't a fan of. Gods of Egypt in 2015, which was a big budget bomb.
Yeah.
So that might be why he stepped back.
Yeah. And his first film, which I've seen recently, I think it's got a crazy name, it's Spirits of the Air, Gremlins of the Crowd.
That's it, yeah.
It's one of those kind of the kind of film that I really like, which doesn't have like actors who can't really act or aren't proper actors yet. Yeah. And the budget's really small, but the design of it's great. The shots are really cool and arty.
Yeah.
And it looks like, like some very cool 80s music video with very little plot and very little happens in it. Just things look really cool. I'm like, I like a film like that.
Because that was made, 6 years before The Crow?
Yeah.
But saying that, The Crow, we always say 1994, but it was probably shot in 92.
Probably,
it was a lot.
Certainly the year before, anyway. Definitely.
Yeah, because we said before the time it took to come out.
Yeah. I think you're right. Actually, I'm pretty sure I did read that it was shot in 92.
We've mentioned the cast and the soundtrack. What do you think of the visual effects? Because some of it I think is amazing, and some of it shows it's 30 years old.
Right. So Alex Proyas, the filmmaker, I think is great at making things that shouldn't perhaps look good.
Yeah.
Right. He got, like I say, his first film is great in that in that you can see that a guy has got really good eye for detail and making things look interesting and working with probably a little amount of money. So when you look at The Crow from just that perspective, I think other than, yes, certain little maybe digital effects don't look so great now, but it is 94.
Exactly. So you got to remember it's 30 years ago.
But if you're looking at more just practically what you're seeing, it's great. It looks great.
It does.
It looks wonderful. There are many model shots of like the city, taken at really interesting angles. Like, oh wow, that's really cool. You don't get stuff like that now because everything just looks like some awful computer game now.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen. I don't think I've seen it on the big screen.
Right.
I've got a bad memory, and I do go to a lot of anniversary showings of films, but I can't remember seeing this on the big screen. It is one I really remember wanting to see as a kid. I think actually a few of my friends somehow got in, and would have been 12, or same as you. I don't know. They probably lied. They probably lied to me.
Oh, it's 15 though, right?
No, 18.
Really?
18, yeah. Always was 18. I've got
that makes sense.
The Blu-ray is here.
Oh, no, you're right. No, you're sure. I mean, I don't know why in my head I think of it as 15.
Is it 15 now?
No. I'm just thinking of back when we would have rented it from the shop.
Yeah. The third one, Salvation, is 15.
Right. Okay, I mean, it makes sense that it's an 18 because it is very violent.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of swearing in it, and there's also a drug use scene of actual, of course. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's got all those elements to it where you go, yeah, that's all, all added up together. It's going to be an 18.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I thought 15.
No, it probably is because we all saw it.
Yeah.
But you said it's been done. It's been done as memes, but reading up on it and stuff, it really is so similar to RoboCop. When you look at
absolutely, but it's got the whole Jesus element, which RoboCop's got as well. Reborn, a sacrificed, reborn kind of thing. Yeah, and there's shots of Christ in both the films as well. Him as kind of doing the whole kind of cross almost image. It's very much.
And that's not a bad thing, being like RoboCop.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I like that. I like that to it about it. That it is. If it's what you're looking for, you want to go and watch a movie where you can pretty much turn your brain off for most of it, really, and just look at visually. Go, oh, this looks cool, doesn't it? This looks really good, and you're not having to worry about anything else. You know where you are at all times with the movie. You don't go, oh, what's going on? You're not go, oh, did I miss something there? There's none of that. It's just what's going on all the way through the movie. It's simple, and that's what if that's what you're looking for. This is a great movie for that.
Yeah, and it's one of those that 30 years on, still being talked about.
Absolutely.
And I thought of something yesterday. I was thinking, what can I say about this movie that kind of everything's been said, so I'll just give my opinion on it.
Sure.
But where I work, across the road, is a rehearsal studio. And these kids got out of a van, all dark black hair, wearing black, guitars. They must have been 15 to 18.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, if they haven't watched The Crow, they should. They'd love it. They probably have. It's probably influenced them.
Yeah.
But they may not have even heard of it. But I reckon they have. And I reckon kids... It is, like you say, it's a teenage film. It's the sort of movie that... in all these 30 years, like even though it's an 18, if you've watched it at 16, it may have a massive impact on you. And that's a good thing. I think
so. I don't think it's a bad thing for certain. I mean, I don't, like I say, when I saw the film, which I'm pretty sure I would have been about 16 when I ended up seeing it. I don't, like I say, I thought to myself, this is a really cool film.
Yeah.
It wasn't a film that I watched again and again and again because, like I say, I've seen quite a lot of movies that are like this. And I'm not saying this is a bad one. I'm just saying that there's a lot of movies that I, at that time, had seen and enjoyed and had thought, right, I'm kind of done a little bit with these kind of movies.
By the time you saw it, you'd seen some of the films that were in a way ripping it off.
Probably.
So you was probably a bit tired of the formula.
Sure. But even saying that, I don't, I think there were other films that perhaps weren't as dark around the same time anyway, that was sort of like this feel, like I said, about the things being dark and rainy and all that kind of stuff.
There's films like The Shadow and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as well,
which weren't as good, right? But I'd seen them because they were, they weren't 18 or whatever, or they just were about, and so you'd watch them, and it's a funny old thing, like thinking 30 years back and thinking, or not necessarily 30 years, but close to that, and thinking like how I felt about it. All I can really say, I properly feel, is that I enjoyed the movie, and but I think that seeing it at the cinema would have been much cooler. And so when I saw it on VHS, I liked it, but it certainly wasn't something that I was like, I'm going to watch this, like RoboCop, which I remember seeing when I was about 10 or something, and seeing it again and again and again and again. And maybe if I was about 10, then when The Crow came out a few years later, maybe The Crow might have been a film that I watched again and again and again. And as I wasn't into the whole aesthetic. I wasn't a goth. I wasn't into looking like Brandon Lee. I had no interest in being Brandon Lee. I didn't have that connection, but I'm sure lots of other people we know did and still do.
Yeah. But I was going to say, one thing that I think shows the quality of the film is, from what you're saying, it'd been thrown in your face when it came out, right? And there was people, we probably knew by that stage, possibly the same people. Some were obsessed with it and kept going on about it, and almost like, you have to watch
absolutely.
it. And that can, even if it's subconsciously, put you off a film. So you sat down and you still liked it.
I did. I saw the good bits that were in the film.
Because I've had films thrown in my face before, and I find it difficult, especially if one person says, I think you'll like it, good, I'll watch it. But if 20 people are telling me you're an idiot for not watching it, you watch it. I'm exaggerating slightly, but you know what I mean, though. You do get this, you've got to see it. And I'll sit down and think, well, I want to choose my own thing, I want to watch my own thing. And the fact you liked it was good. I can remember there was some biggish film that everyone was going on about, and I didn't watch it till it was out on video, and then I probably should have liked it, and I have to go back to films later.
There's probably more than one of those.
It was around the same time. It might have been, I hate to say,
Armageddon.
No, I think it was Twister.
Twister.
I think it was Twister.
I saw that at the cinema.
And I watched it on video and was like, nah. And then years later, when it probably first came on Blu-ray, I watched it and I'm like, it's pretty cool, isn't it? But it was because everyone was like...
Yeah, well, again, that's a movie. I saw that at the cinema, and I loved that at the cinema. It's like, wow, brilliant. Because it's like a lot of other movies that are coming out at this time, but it's natural. It's a natural thing. It's got Bill Paxton in it. Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's simple as you like. It just, they turn up. There's tornadoes. They're following them. Yeah. Brilliant. Fantastic.
Isn't it like the good guys followed him?
The bad guys. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, whatever. There's nothing crazy convoluted about it. It's just, right, here we go. We're chasing tornadoes. Boom.
But looking back, what was cool about that was the same year as the other big film was Independence Day.
Yeah.
So it's those two films, which is one this massive invading Earth, and one was like...
Again, saw both of them in the cinema. I would say they're on par with each other as far as I was concerned, as just excitement watching them on screen. I think I've seen Independence Day more times since, like on video, DVD or whatever. But they are both movies that I reckon if I'd seen either of those films without going to the cinema and seeing them first, I wouldn't care too much about them. I'd put them on and be like, yeah, they're cool. Yeah. But it's seeing films like that at the cinema for the first time before you rewatch them. That's the important thing, I think, for your just continuing to enjoy them on a higher level.
I think Twister is quite interesting because the sequel to Twister is coming out in a few months.
Yeah.
And that's taken a long time. Whereas with The Crow, a few years later, I think it was Vincent Perez, wasn't it? They'd done The Crow 2, City of Angels. There was a huge release, bigger budget. It was everywhere, another big soundtrack. And this didn't do well, did it? No. It wasn't a great film, I didn't think.
I'm trying to think of it. I think I might have seen it and didn't like it.
Yeah, it was like a glossy version of The Crow. But I find it really interesting that this movie and I think it is sort of money grabbing, that we got in the news because of Brandon Lee, and it was Brandon Lee's thing, and it was all, and then they turned out really quickly a sequel without him. it's almost a bit disrespectful, I think. But it's like they wanted to make, if they did want to make it a franchise to see where they were going, but it was a different character. It was a different.
Yeah.
I can see why a lot of people. Like, it's a bit like with the cast not watching it out of respect. I can see why a lot of people are like, this is just a bit weird. But it was so successful. There was action figures, T-shirts. I suppose it'd have been silly not to have jumped on it.
I think you're right. I also do think that I'm sure this is not something. Well, I think it's something that may have been discussed, but I don't think it's something that's was being realised. Is that you could do The Crow, many movies with different characters and different people, because ultimately The Crow is about a crow that brings back people to life to get revenge.
Yeah.
So it could be different people that with different stories who need to come back for revenge, and just have that crow being the constant throughout all the different stories.
Yeah, that's what they went with in the end.
But that was.
So that's what I've seen the first 2 sequels, and they've done 4 and a TV series.
But I could see that could potentially work. But obviously, thinking of Halloween, which was what Halloween was going to do, was going to just have a story, a name, but different stories throughout. So anthology, basically, movies. Even though 3 is great, lots of people didn't and still don't like it very much.
Wrongly.
Indeed. Yeah. You're absolutely right there. So that's probably, what a lot of people also were thinking. Was like, oh no, we don't want The Crow if it's not Brandon Lee.
That's true, yeah. But if they'd planned him to be in this trilogy, but who knows where it'd have gone.
Yeah.
And I've only read the original comic book series, so that character... Eric, just in a comment, Eric Dreven in the film.
That sounds right, yeah.
Maybe that character did go off and do more in the comics. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I have read other comics that are different crows, so that definitely happened, but that could have been after the effect of the film.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
But there's all this, I don't really regard, but there is not just Brandon Lee, there's a few incidents on set.
Oh, really?
So people thought it was a cursed film.
Oh, really? I know nothing about that.
Yeah, there were some other accidents and things. But I think maybe there's, especially in this era of filmmaking, there was always a lot of accidents. And it comes out once something's gone major.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It was the actor who fired the bullet was the actor who hasn't seen it. It's just come back to me. Right. I can't think which actor.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I can't think who it was.
Is it meant? It's meant to be the scene is the beginning, isn't it? Where they shoot him dead before he becomes the Crow. Isn't that?
I think so.
I think it's in that scene. So I'm trying to think who might have shot shot him.
He's out. If you Google it, it is out there. Right. But you got a feel for the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a total accident. So.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the gang members anyway. Which is you got to think it was horrible for them. Yeah, and it was such a big film; it would have been everywhere. But also, the director, the writers, they put a lot into this film as well. So there's 2 sides to it. Overall, I think it should have got released. Yeah,
I agree. I think so too. I'm pretty sure. I would more than likely think that Brandon Lee would have wanted it released, because I'm sure he was happy with the work that he did, and he should have. And he should be, because, like I say, I think it was a fine performance, and I'm sure the best performance he's given in any film that he was in. Yeah. So it definitely should have been released.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, the guy who fired the bullet probably in the long run thinks it should.
I would have thought so. I completely understand why I wouldn't want to see the film.
Oh, totally, yeah. So we mentioned there was 3 sequels, a TV series called The Crow Stairway to Heaven.
Brilliant.
There should be The Crow Highway to Heaven crossover. Endless more comics. I'm surprised there wasn't an animated series or an anime or some of the darker one. Yeah. And the remake is coming out either later this year or early next.
It's true.
Starring the fellow who played Pennywise in it.
Yeah, a Swedish actor. I always forget his name. Is his name Alex as well, maybe? I can't remember his surname. He's got a father who's also an actor, very famous. Can never remember their surname. Sorry.
I should have. I saw the trailer in the big IMAX screen at another cinema recently, and it wasn't that full a screen, but there was a bit of you could hear it that people don't want this film.
Well, this Crow,
this Crow remake.
Understandable.
You
know what? I don't care either way. People make whatever they want to make. But yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not like anticipating.
No,
I'm not like, wow, please.
It's been 30 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not do a remake? But as you say, why not do? Well, I don't know. It might the characters might have different names. It might be that's the way to do it.
I don't like I say I don't care. I'm not. That's my point. Is that I'm not like, oh, how dare they, or they shouldn't do it. They should do whatever they feel is the right thing for them to do. So fine. Yeah. I'm just not the target audience. I don't think so. Teenagers definitely should be going out watching this movie.
Yeah. I will say that we both said massive RoboCop fan. They remade that. I went to see it.
I haven't seen it.
Didn't like it, but also it doesn't affect.
No, of course not.
I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to go online crying about it.
No, of course. That'd be a weird thing to do.
Yeah. Well, it happens.
I know it does.
Ghostbusters. It does happen.
And I'm sure it happened with that one. I'm sure loads of people are like, how dare they make another Robot? I mean, I haven't seen it because I don't think it's something that I don't need to watch it, and everyone that I know has seen it has not liked it. So
I know a few people who did.
Oh, really?
But probably just to argue with me. But it's something that there was always going to be a Crow remake, and it kind of be nice as a fan of it to see another version of it, because since the Crow 2, you've had low budget stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So straight to video, straight to streaming. So I'll give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, fine. Like I say,
it'd probably be a mistake because I'd have just seen the good one at the cinema just before.
Well, let's not badmouth it. I like to say, I'm not bothered about it, but maybe it will turn out to be a really great movie, and everyone can eat their words.
Yeah, humble pie. So reviews for this, it got fairly positive reviews.
Yeah,
at the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's, even though it made money, it is another cult classic. It won't go away. But it's got its smaller, hardcore fan base. On Letterboxd, it's got 3.7 out of 5. On Rotten Tomatoes, 85%. And on IMDb, 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, maybe. That's fine. Yeah, I can't see. 7 out of 10 to me sounds right for the movie. Yeah. So I'd probably out of 5, I'd be giving it a 3. Yeah. It's solid.
3.5.
It's solid, good fun.
Yeah.
It's certainly a higher 3 than a lower 3. Certainly. Yeah.
I think it's a good revenge movie.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Very, very stylistic in a way of its time.
Yeah.
Influential.
Absolutely.
For a film so simple to be influential is I think it's cool. But also it's
Star Wars though.
Yeah, true.
Very, as far as I'm concerned, very simple.
Yeah, all been done before.
Absolutely.
But done well.
But done extremely well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
do you know the backstory behind the writer, by the way, James O'Barr? What the inspiration was?
Yeah, his girlfriend was attacked.
It was a motorcycle in I think a car crash or something like that. And I'm assuming the people got away with it.
Oh, right.
And then he joined the military. And got got that out of his system in a way, like the angry side.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then wrote the comic.
Okay, right. No, I don't know. I thought.
I'm sure
maybe that's Anthony Burgess.
I'm now having a quick because maybe I read comments. Maybe it might have been couldn't have been a biker gang. That's too close to the the actual thing. Killed by a drunk driver.
Right,
yeah. In 1978.
Okay. Actually, killed.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's So that would.
Yeah, sure. You'd be seeking, some sort of revenge. I could understand that.
Yeah.
And obviously a better way to get that out of your system would be to write a story about revenge than actually going out and getting revenge.
Yeah. And it's a film that will always be remembered. And it's probably the sort that when you go into the music shops now, you can probably see them in the posters where you flick through. There's probably still ones of the Crow there now.
I would have thought so.
Yeah,
surely.
Right. So this is meant to be a bonus episode, but we've waffled on again.
We have waffled.
Should we just mention anything else that's?
I mean, if you want to, I haven't got a thing on me. There we go. Here's some professionalism for you, ladies and gentlemen.
And there's the Mother Cutters season.
Oh yes, so we got Medium Cool coming out. It's an interesting little movie, that one. I highly recommend people go and see that. And The Rain People as well, which is a Francis Ford Coppola film, which I don't think I've ever seen, you know.
Really?
So that one should be good. Early Francis Ford Coppola, who's got a new film out at the moment, or coming out. It's not
got distributed yet.
No, but it was at Cannes, which was the other week, and didn't do too well.
I heard mixed things.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So that's good. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 50th anniversary. So you know all about that one.
Hell yeah! Go back for our episodes. There is an episode of that.
Yeah. So
and we done a year or so ago.
Another oldie, THX 1138. So that's again part of the Mother Cutters season. Directed by George Lucas. Edited, I believe, by Marsha Lucas, which is it's part of the Mother Cutters season, which is a season of films edited by women.
Yeah, there's a little brochure
that
you can pick up at the cinema with all the films coming up. I'm looking forward to. Is Woodstock part of that? I want to see that.
It is, yeah. Woodstock is part of that. Yes.
Yeah, because that's like 3.5 hours of cool music.
Yeah. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, Woodstock. I think. I mean, it's a little overblown. I think. I don't think it needed to be so long. And there probably are edited versions of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a DVD of it. I'm sure it wasn't that long.
Yeah. So, but it's a film I watched when I was very young, and always stick with you for the the performances and that. Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it at the cinema for the first time. That's right. You should see all of these movies. Every single one. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of foreign films coming out, like Close Your Eyes and The Beast and El Chimera, which I think have probably all been reviewed. I've got something out online or whatever else. They all look very interesting, so
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but I've been going on Saturday afternoons.
Yeah,
there's been 2 or 3 in a row. I saw Teachers Lounge.
Oh yes, you did. See, I don't get to see the films, so and even less so now for technical reasons. So it's good to hear some feedback.
Yeah, it does. I've enjoyed them. It's films I wouldn't normally, maybe even heard of if it wasn't for your cinema.
Yeah.
But Saturday afternoons, now the old football season's over, I can get away from work.
So it's Teachers Lounge, and you also saw If Only I Could Hibernate. It's a Mongolian film.
That was cool.
Yeah.
And a few weeks before that, in the same sort of time slot, I think I saw Monster.
Yeah.
So
that would be right.
Yeah. Some good stuff I wouldn't normally catch, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. We also got Bill and Ted coming up.
That is what I'm hoping to be the next episode. When are you showing Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Bill and Ted is coming out, I believe it'll be on the 28th of June and the 29th.
Yeah, Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
So I've got a mate who says he's doing both.
Yeah, well, and good for him.
Yeah.
And everyone should be doing both, really.
Yeah. If you've seen Bill and Ted before, you'll obviously want to see it in the cinema. If you haven't, sort your life out and get to the cinema.
Did you see either of them at the cinema?
Not the first 2, no.
You did not? I saw Bogus Journey at the cinema.
Yeah, I didn't. No, because that was 1991 or
91.
Yeah, I didn't. I wanted to. It was one of those. I was still at that age where if I went to the cinema, I'd have to either go with my parents, they'd have to drop me off.
Sure.
And I certainly made up for it when the 2 Wayne's World films
came out.
But no, I remember it may have been the second one that really got me into Bill and Ted. I possibly saw it before the first.
I'd seen the first one. I saw we rented it when it first came out. Right away rented it because I remember being out of the cinema, but again it was like couldn't quite go yet in '89. Yeah. But got it out on video and then was directly straight away go, which is interesting because I did not see Wayne's World, the first one at cinema. I saw the second one at cinema, but we didn't go for the first. Bill
and Ted was a few years before.
Yeah.
This is a little teaser for the next episode.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. This is stuff that we will talk very in length about.
Yeah. So thank you all very much for listening to this special episode on The Crow.
Yes, The Crow.
Which will be shown at King Street Cinema June 1st. Is it 8:45?
Oh, that sounds about right.
I think it's 8:45 because I think there's a movie on
there
before
There is a movie.
6.
There's Hordes on at... Medium Cool is on at 6. And 8:45 for The Crow.
Yeah, get there in good time.
Yes.
And I'll see you there because I'm definitely going.
Excellent.